ships, especially the Manitoban riverboats. Over the years, they've had some pretty epic and destructive endings, but that was rarely the case for most of the Manitoban riverboats. Sure, we maybe had a spectacular crush on ice or a fire that destroyed more than just the ship, but for the most part, they've been pretty chill. Except for two. And this one is by far one of the most confusing and destructive of them. And this is the destructive end of the Manitoban stern wheel, Assiniboine. This is her history and her unfortunately interesting demise. The Assiniboine was built in 1894. She had a very normal career for the first few years of her life, until 1897, when she took part in emergency relief efforts during the 1897 Red River flood. Dispatched on its mission under Captain Edward Cannell, the normal passenger limit of 150 was tossed out the window, and instead was put up to 500 if the need arose. While en route to Emerson with food and fuel, including 30 cords of wood, it also delivered much needed supplies to St. Jean Baptiste and transported over 400 head of cattle from near Morris, in addition to an unknown number of horses. At Emerson, it steamed right down the streets, which were covered by the floodwater. That's just how much water there was. After the flood, Assiniboine returned to her normal duties. Its operations included carrying passengers from James Street to Jubilee Park in Winnipeg, and the round trip only cost 25 cents. This is 25 cents back in that time, not today. And that was only for adults. That's right, it got even cheaper for children when it was only 10 cents. However, if you were under 5, it was free. They also happen to have an Italian string band flying aboard, which is very Winnipeg-like. Other riverside destinations included Elm Park, but she didn't last long under her first owner, or her first name. Between 1898 and 1900, the only 4-year-old Assiniboine was dismantled at Winnipeg, and she was rebuilt for the Pioneer Sand and Navigation Company and given a brand new name, the Gertie H., apparently named after Gertrude Hull, the daughter of proprietor John Stuart Hull. Its initial capacity had room for 200 children along with accompanying parents. Prior to an overhaul and refit in the early spring of 1901, a removable smokestack enabled the ship to pass under low bridges, which, at least in my opinion, was a very smart move. The Gertie H was used for public charters from Monday through Saturdays, traveling from the Lombard Street docks to Elm Park. Non-passenger work included the dredging of sand from the river bottom, hauling lumber, and transporting produce from settlements upstream on the Assiniboine River. On July 27, 1903, the vessel's firefighting equipment was used to help extinguish a blaze at the site of the Arctic Ice Company, at the southeast corner of River Avenue and Main Street, and adjacent residence of Charles Hosmer McNaughton. Less than a year later, on April 27, 1904, the vessel was thoroughly wrecked in an untimely and major riverway runaway inferno. The Gertie H was towing an empty large barge downstream to St. Peter's to fetch a load of wood. A particularly powerful current caught the barge, rotating it broadside, causing it to crash into the Gertie. The contact smashed the wheelhouse, with Captain William Hull and others inside, who managed to jump safely onto the barge, which caused the crash in the first place. The impact ruptured steam pipes throughout the vessel. Without steam pressure and powerless, a fire ignited, and the ship crashed into the center-west pier of the Canadian Pacific Railway main line bridge. High water levels at the time allowed much of the crew to scramble onto the bridge to safety, which was far safer in my opinion then jumping onto the unpowered, uncontrollable barge. The bridge caught fire, and some 50 of its center swing span ties were burned. Breaking free, the blazing wreck continued downstream towards the Louis Bridge. Before reaching it, there was a powerful explosion inside the hull. The explosion drew the attention of the staff from the nearby J.Y. Griffin and Company warehouse, now the Ernie O'Dowan Memorial Park. They formed an impromptu fire brigade. When the Grady 8 reached the Louis Bridge, flames engulfed the bridge within 5 minutes, in part due to a faulty hydrant on the bridge. Fortunately, it was spared any further damage on account of the Griffin employees, who hacked burning timbers from said bridge. With the arrival of the Winnipeg Fire Department, crews led by Fire Chief John Buchanan's grappled and the hapless Gertie and dragged it ashore between the Louis Bridge and the Griffin warehouse. The north end of the Louis Bridge was ruined, with pedestrian and vehicular traffic interrupted until repairs could be made. The beach ship was burned to the waterline, leaving only the boilers. Insured for $4,000, it was replaced with a new vessel, which I cannot find the name of, and 2 barges, based on designs by J. Wall. The barges were designed, however, by D. McGregor at Rapp Portage, which is now Kenora, Ontario. And that is the history and the untimely wreck of the steam sternwheeler Gertie H. / Assiniboine. Thank you for watching, everyone.